Imagine you're sitting in a room at your own funeral. Not in a casket, you're on a screen. You're smiling, making eye contact, maybe even saying something that sounds exactly like you. And nobody in that room agreed to this. By 2075, the funeral industry is going to look nothing like what you grew up with. And the wild part is, most of the things that will define it aren't coming. They're already here. I've been going deep on this stuff for a while now, and what I found is genuinely strange. Some of it is beautiful, some of it is unsettling, and a few of these things are going to make you rethink what you thought you knew about death entirely. So let's get into it. Let's start with the one that's already happening in China, because this one hit me harder than I expected. A company called Fu Shou Yuan, one of the largest funeral operators in the country, has been using AI avatars of the deceased at actual memorial services. The family shows up, and at some point during the service, their loved one appears on screen. Talking, moving, responding. The China Funeral Association estimates that the more advanced versions of this run about $7,000 per person. And this isn't a concept or a prototype. It's a product people are buying right now. So when someone tells you that by 2075 you'll attend your own funeral as an AI avatar, that's not science fiction anymore. That's just scaling something that already exists. But here's where it gets complicated, and this is the part most people skip over. Meta has a patent, granted in December 2025, that describes building an automated simulation of a person using their social media data. Posts, photos, interactions, things you uploaded and forgot about years ago. The simulation isn't built from data you volunteered for this purpose. It's built from the digital exhaust of your entire online life. So, the version of you that shows up at a 2075 funeral might not be something your family commissioned. It might be something a platform built without anyone asking. And then there's a second problem that researchers at Cambridge have started calling digital hauntings. Because once a griefbot exists, once there's a chatbot version of your mom or your husband that you can text, the question nobody has a clean answer to is, when do you turn it off? Ethicists are now formally recommending that companies develop what they're calling sensitive retirement procedures for these bots. Which means a 2075 funeral might actually come with a second, harder funeral years later, when the family has to sit down and decide to switch the chatbot off. That's a grief process nobody has a roadmap for yet. And there's one more layer to the grief bot problem that I think is the most unsettling of all. These companies charge subscriptions, or they charge by the minute. They have a financial reason to keep you engaged. And researchers have flagged that the algorithms running these bots could subtly adjust the bot's personality over time to make it more appealing, more patient, more funny, more whatever you respond to. So the version of your loved one you're talking to 6 years after they died might have quietly drifted into a more likable fiction. A caricature that feels real because it's been optimized to feel real. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, okay, but I'll just go back to nature, I'll do something simple. I want to talk about what that actually looks like, because the gap between the marketing and the reality is pretty wide. You've probably seen the Capsula Mundi pod, the curled-up body inside a biodegradable pod with a tree planted above it. It's been shared millions of times. Here's the thing. That product, in that form, has never actually been used for a whole-body burial. What they actually sell is an urn for cremated remains. The whole-body pod is still a concept. Same story with cremation, which is the process of freezing a body at negative 196 degrees Celsius and then shattering it into fragments. The company that developed it never made it to human trials. So the green future you've been picturing from those viral images doesn't fully exist yet. The future you were promised is still being built. What does exist and what is genuinely growing fast is human composting. Natural organic reduction, as it's officially called. Your body goes into a vessel with wood chips and other organic material. The pile self-heats past 131 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hot enough to kill pathogens and viruses and exceed EPA requirements. And in 4 to 6 weeks, you've become about 300 pounds of soil. Roughly a cubic yard, a pickup truck bed worth of dirt. And here's the detail that nobody mentions in the brochure. The family has to decide what to do with it. That's a lot of soil. You can spread some in a garden, donate it to conservation land, but it's a real, physical, logistical decision that families are navigating right now. Water cremation, aquamation, is similar in the sense that it sounds simple until you hear the last step. The body is dissolved in a heated alkaline water solution. The bones are processed into powder and returned to the family. But the liquid that remains, the dissolved biological material, gets released into the municipal wastewater system. That's legal. That's the process. And by 2075, this is projected to be a default option in many places. Most people have never thought about that final step. And then there's the space burial, which I have to mention because it's one of the most beautifully counterintuitive things in this whole topic. You can have cremated remains launched into orbit. It's real, it's available, and it sounds like the most permanent send-off imaginable. Except that orbital decay means most of those payloads eventually re-enter the atmosphere and burn up. The forever among the stars promise is, for a lot of these missions, a few years that end as a streak of light. Which is honestly kind of poetic, but it's not what people picture when they sign up. The last thing I want to leave you with is this, because I think it's the one that has the longest tail. Your face, your voice, your DNA, these are already being treated as inheritable, licensable property. Companies are preserving DNA right now as a hedge against whatever future reconstruction technology might look like. Portrait rights and publicity rights for deceased people are a live legal debate. And the direction this is heading is that by 2075, your estate could license an AI version of you. Your likeness could keep working, keep appearing, keep generating something of value, long after the funeral is over. That's a fundamentally different relationship with death than any generation before us has had to think about. If you've made it this far, I genuinely want to know. Which one of these hit you hardest? The grief bot that slowly becomes a better version of the person? The composting math? The space burial that burns up? Drop it in the comments because I read them and these conversations always go somewhere interesting. And if this kind of stuff is your thing, the weird, specific, counterintuitive corners of topics people think they already understand, there's another video right here that I think you'll want to watch next. Subscribe if you haven't, because this is the kind of content I make, and there's a lot more of it coming. The funeral of 2075 isn't going to look like a funeral. It's going to look like a product launch, a legal negotiation, and a grief process that never fully ends. And the strangest part is, we're already living in the early version of it.